Newscaster, with Michael Gove suggesting their opposition might have a time limit.
Are you saying never, or are you saying not now?
Well, not now. No, I think that
not never?
No, well, obviously.
Who will carry the can for Labour? Keir Starmer finalises a reshuffle of his cabinet after his disappointing election results. Could self-isolation be coming to an end? A trial looks at whether daily COVID tests will be the next step. And Manchester United makes City wait for the Premier League crown.
This is ITV News with Romilly Weeks.
Good evening. Nicola Sturgeon has told Boris Johnson it's a case of when, not if, Scotland will have a second independence referendum. She made the comments during a phone call between the two leaders this afternoon. Her hopes of a fresh vote were boosted after pro-independence parties won a majority in the Scottish Parliament. But today there was a hint that Westminster might not block one after all. Michael Gove told our Scotland correspondent Peter Smith he wasn't saying no to another referendum, just not now.
Nicola Sturgeon has won the election, but in a country still divided on the independence question, she's gone straight to work trying to win the argument for another referendum.
The SNP won the election on offering people a referendum after the COVID crisis to determine the issue of independence. It strikes me that saying that people in Scotland are split on the issue is actually an argument for settling it in a referendum, not an argument against.
To get that independence referendum, the Scottish Parliament must first vote for it. But with the SNP and Greens forming a majority in favour here, that will be a formality. Then the First Minister will write to the Prime Minister requesting the powers to give Scots that democratic choice. Until now, the UK government has said it will be a firm no. But today, the rejection was softer and leaves the door open.
Are you saying never, or are you saying not now?
Well, not now. No, I think that
not never.
No, well, obviously, it is the case that there is an understandable debate that people can have in the future, but for the moment, we absolutely need to concentrate on recovery.
In your mind, what would be the time frame for having that debate sensibly?
Well, I'm not concentrating on that at the moment. I mean, I'm not putting it into my mind at all.
People in Scotland are thinking about it. You understand
Well, journalists in Scotland are asking about it.
Nicola Sturgeon will soon be asking about it, but she agrees with the UK government. Now is not the time.
First Minister, when is the time?
And while Scotland's Parliament has a clear pro-independence majority, the people of the country are still split.
Those who favour staying in the Union don't want a second referendum at all. Those who are pro-independence in the main do want one in the next parliamentary term, but once the immediate crisis of COVID is over. But of course none of this is settled, so while at the moment the Scottish public are split down the middle on independence, actually there's still 1 in 10 of them whose support or otherwise is pretty soft and might still change their minds.
Resuming her place in the First Minister's official residence, Nicola Sturgeon says the pandemic is her first priority. But it's clear from both sides, the campaign for Scotland's future has already begun.
And Peter, Nicola Sturgeon and Boris Johnson have been speaking this afternoon. Do we know what was said?
It was this crucial line, Nicola Sturgeon telling the First Minister that the question of whether Scotland will have a referendum, it's not a question of if, but when. And that timing is crucial because she's saying, yes, COVID recovery is her priority, but she has this mandate and she intends to use it in her terms, in her timing, and she's daring the Prime Minister to try and stop her. But if we look at the parliamentary elections that we've just had in Scotland, yes, the Scottish Parliament has a clear majority to ask the independence question, but it is the people who will answer it. And the polling tells us there's no clear majority either way. And I think that is why neither Nicola Sturgeon nor Boris Johnson are rushing into a referendum, because they both know it's on a knife edge, and they both fear it's one they could lose.
OK, Peter, thank you. Meanwhile, the fallout from Labour's disappointing local election results in England continues. Last night, leader Sir Keir Starmer sacked his deputy Angela Rayner from her role as the party's chair and campaigns coordinator. Now he's attempting to reshuffle his shadow cabinet. And our political reporter Shihab Khan is in Westminster. Shihab, we've been waiting for the details of this all day. Is this a sign of more problems for the Labour leader?
Well, I mean, it's rather complicated, Romilly. It's been a confusing 24 hours or so. The first we heard about this potential reshuffle came when, as you mentioned, we found out that Angela Rayner was going to be demoted. Now, I understand that conversations were still ongoing. Labour sources tell me that we weren't supposed to hear about that, which would suggest that someone leaked that to the media. I also understand that Angela Rayner first heard about the confirmation that she was being demoted from journalists, from newspaper reports. That would suggest that it's not exactly been smooth sailing, that work was still ongoing. And you're right, we haven't heard the finer details about this reshuffle. We've been waiting for that. Now, usually politicians don't like being told they have to go do a different job, so there is a lot of work that needs to be done. Now, we haven't heard from Keir Starmer yet, but we did see him this morning when he left his house in London.
Morning, Mr. Starmer. Is removing Angela Rayner as party chair you taking responsibility? Is this the first of many changes, Mr. Starmer?
No, he wasn't too keen to talk just then, and we haven't heard from him yet, but there are plenty of questions being asked of him. There was a disappointing set of results from the local elections, but it's not all been bad news. There has been some pockets of good news for the Labour Party. Sadiq Khan, Andy Burnham, the local mayors, the mayors of London and Manchester have been re-elected. It seems as though the candidate in West Yorkshire will also be successful, but we're not talking about that. Instead, we are talking about this internal reshuffle and whether or not it's going to help reach those voters that Labour wants to reach.
Right, Shihab, thank you very much. The Queen's cousin, Prince Michael of Kent, has been accused of selling access to Russian President Vladimir Putin. During a meeting with an undercover reporter, it's claimed the prince agreed to a fee of $200,000 to contact the Kremlin on behalf of a fictitious company, allegations he denies. Sejal Karia has the details.
He is titled a Royal Highness and he is a first cousin to the Queen. Prince Michael of Kent also has long-standing links to Russia. Here at a ceremony in 2009, after receiving one of the Kremlin's most prestigious awards, the Order of Friendship, for his work on Anglo-Russian relations. He was the first royal to learn the language and qualify as a Russian interpreter. And it is those connections an undercover investigation now claims he was willing to use for personal profit by providing access to Russian President Vladimir Putin for a fee. The two people at the top have set up a remote meeting with the prince, posing as representatives of a South Korean company dealing in gold.
As a royal member,
they are in fact reporters for the Sunday Times and Channel 4, hoping the prince could open doors for them in the Kremlin, and they offer a generous fee to the prince for a speech.
How about the fee, $200,000 that we have offered? Was it acceptable, sir?
Oh yes, very much so. Thank you. Yes, indeed. Very good. Thank you so much. Yes.
Is it in line with what you normally charge for a speech like this, sir?
Yes, indeed. So I have no questions for you on that. I'm very happy with your suggestion.
Prince Michael, who is not a working member of the royal family and is not funded by the public purse, denied the claims. In a statement, his office said he hadn't met President Putin for almost 18 years and that his representative had made exaggerated suggestions to undercover journalists that Prince Michael would not have been able to fulfill. Buckingham Palace has not responded, but these are yet more damaging claims for the monarchy in what had already been a difficult time. Sejal Karia, ITV News.
The body of a newborn baby has been found in a canal in northwest London. The Met Police said an urgent investigation is underway to establish what happened. The force has urged the baby's mother to seek medical assistance by dialing 999. Police have been given more time to question a man arrested in connection with the killing of police community support officer Julia James. The 53-year-old was found dead in Woodland near her home in Kent 12 days ago. And disruption on rail services due to cracks in some high-speed trains could continue for days. The Hitachi-made Class 800 trains were pulled from lines yesterday as a precaution. A trial looking at whether self-isolation for close contacts of people with COVID could be replaced with daily testing has begun in England. Currently, only half of people told to stay home do so. And with restrictions expected to be relaxed in just over a week's time, including being able to hug friends and families, it's thought it's even more important that people follow the rules, as Rebecca Barry explains.
Sometimes you're tearing your hair out. I want to go for a run and see my friends and family.
A video diary from isolation.
Hello, just walking around the perimeter of my house, living the dream, getting some of that nice fresh air. We're not allowed out, so we try and get our exercise by doing this.
Finn's been isolating for the last week after one of his housemates tested positive for COVID. This is the third time he's had to do this, so news that quarantine could eventually be replaced by daily testing if a major study is successful sounds very appealing.
I would 100% want to take that opportunity. If you can crack on with your life and know that you're not making the problem worse, then I think I would certainly take that opportunity with both hands.
From today, if you've had close contact with a positive COVID case, you could be invited to take part in a study. Participants will get 2 PCR tests plus a week's supply of these rapid tests. They'll be able to go about their lives exempt from the legal requirement to quarantine so long as they take one of these tests every morning, the results are negative and they don't show any symptoms.
Those taking part must be over 18 and not in full-time education. Anyone not in the trial should stick to the current rules. The scientist leading the study says it could help us return to a kind of normality.
To help us reduce the need to isolate so that we can all return to greater normality as quickly as possible, but to do so in a safe manner.
Tomorrow, the government's set to confirm a further easing of the rules in England, with hints that hugging could soon be allowed. As the risk declines and social mixing increases, this research could help carve out an alternative strategy for living with COVID. Rebecca Barry, ITV News.
Manchester City will have to wait a little longer to be crowned Premier League champions. After slipping up against Chelsea yesterday, they needed Manchester rivals United to lose at Aston Villa today, but United didn't play ball. Chris Scudder was watching.
If City are almost home and hosed, United still wanted to rain on their parade for a little while longer. Had they lost here, it would have been all over, but Villa threatened to do just that with a great strike.
Bertrand Traoré has them unwrapping the bunting in the blue half of Manchester.
Villa, though, hadn't beaten United at home for nearly a quarter of a century, in the days when City were heading towards English football's third tier.
Fernandes.
And once they were level through Fernandes' penalty, United made Villa pay and City wait, with a second goal from Mason Greenwood.
And it's quite the turnaround from Manchester United.
Not what the noisy neighbours wanted, and United scored a third through Cavani to silence the City celebrations a little while longer.
Here's Watkins, Henderson was wrapped.
Villa finished the match with 10 men when Watkins was booked for a dive and 2 yellow cards made a red. United are still a distant 10 points behind City at the top, but they'll hope to keep them waiting even longer by beating Leicester on Tuesday. Chris Scudder, ITV News.
Meanwhile, the Women's Super League has been decided and Chelsea are celebrating tonight after a 5-0 thrashing of Reading. That means they retain their title, finishing 2 points clear of Manchester City. Chelsea are also through to the Champions League final. And Lewis Hamilton came from behind with a late overtake to beat his rival Max Verstappen to win the Spanish Grand Prix. It was Hamilton's third victory in 4 races so far this season. Finally, the Duchess of Sussex has appeared on TV for the first time since the bombshell interview with Oprah Winfrey.
The past year has been defined by communities coming together tirelessly and heroically to tackle COVID-19. And we've gathered tonight because the road ahead is getting brighter.
Meghan's pre-recorded message was part of last night's Vax Live concert. She highlighted how the pandemic has disproportionately affected women and called for fairer vaccine distribution. And that's all for now. I'm back with the late news at 10:45. Until then, good evening.